This segment of Labatt Buffalo Main Event is brought to you by
Kaz Electronics, your gadget source with referral rewards.
We're back on Labatt Buffalo Main Event. Brad Ryder along with Bob Gaughan. Our guest this week from the Buffalo News is Mike Harrington. And at the time of this taping, Brian Campbell remains a Buffalo Sabre with the trade deadline rapidly approaching. This can go one of three ways. He gets dealt, he signs a long-term deal, or he just sticks around. Which way does it go, Mike?
Oh, I think at this time he's sticking around. There's no way he's going anywhere, I don't think. I think the Sabres have finally decided, you know what, we're not going to do anything different we've done before. I think they have kidded themselves into thinking they're a legitimate contender. And, you know, the way the Eastern Conference is right now, who knows? Maybe they are, but I just don't think they feel that they're going to make a deal in this short a time period when they're playing this well. They're going to keep him.
Does that mean they keep him and sign him, or it just mean they just keep him? There's two totally different scenarios.
Right. You know, I think there is a lot more dialogue going on here than there was, I think, with Drury and Briere. Campbell really wants to stay. Keep in mind, Drury and Briere had been with other teams. They had only been here a couple years. Campbell is a 9-year homegrown guy. I think he has a little more emotional connection to the Sabres than the other two guys had. There's a lot of dialogue going on. They're close on money. They're not close on years yet. So there's still hope there, and Campbell hasn't given up the hope either, and he wants to be here for this run.
The other thing, too, is it's not going to be viewed as a dumb move if a team acquires Brian Campbell only to lose him for nothing at the end of the year. But for some reason, if the Sabres keep their own guy, think of him as a rent-a player, that's considered dumb. That hasn't made sense to me the whole time.
Well, and I think that wouldn't have been the case if Briere and Drury had never happened. But now people are compounding all the Sabres' mistakes in the past with negotiation and thinking, here we go again with Campbell. You're right. Do you want to give Campbell away and basically say goodbye to the season right now? I don't want to do that right now with 20 games to go where the team is. I think they'd be doing that if they deal Campbell and really get nothing for him.
Do you think there's any pressure from the Players Association on Campbell not to give a hometown discount, but to go and get the most money you can?
Oh, no, there's no pressure, Bob. Come on. Campbell even has said, I have no pressure. No one's talked to me about it. You know what? Maybe no one has talked to him about it. But they've all talked to him about it in their own way. Of course there's pressure. If he doesn't take the best deal, other guys aren't going to get good deals either. He has to fall in line. So I think he's definitely feeling that situation. He can take a hometown discount, but it ain't going to be for much money.
My thought isn't that Darcy Regier is 100% opposed to dealing Brian Campbell. And when I say Darcy Regier, I mean the whole group, including Larry Quinn, including Tom Golisano, maybe even Lindy Ruff. But the question to me is it possible to deal Brian Campbell and still think you can make the playoffs and still think you can make your team better right now by making a deal and being blown away by some offer that comes in for Campbell as the deadline approaches?
Oh, I think they definitely feel if they can make the right deal, they would do it now. But to me, they want to get a live player, maybe 2 live players, a prospect, a draft choice. You're talking 3 or 4 particulars they want to get for Campbell right now. And, you know, if you're a Stanley Cup team and you think Campbell might take you over the top, how much are you going to give up off your team to get him? It's a real interesting dynamic a lot of teams have to figure out.
Talk about the Ryan Miller interesting scenario where his contract is coming up next year. Do you think the Sabres can re-sign Ryan Miller next year and have Brian Campbell on the roster?
I think that's the goal. I think realistically they understand if we're going to have a core of players in this team, it's going to be Thomas Vanek, Derek Roy, Brian Campbell, Ryan Miller. That's the optimum scenario. Now, you're right. Do they have enough money to do all that? Well, the cap is going to go up next year. We know that. I think Brian Campbell is very important because if they don't sign him, Ryan Miller is going to look and say, Jay McKee, Mike Greer, J.P. Dumont, he's going to go down the list. Drury, Briere, Campbell. And I don't know that Ryan Miller is going to stick around. And the Red Wings, everybody talks about the Red Wings. They're going to have goaltending needs in a couple of years. How long can Dom really play, right? Ryan Miller's a guy who is definitely watching this very closely. And I think he'll be thrilled if they keep Campbell because then you can really say they're going to build a real core around these 3 or 4 guys.
If you're Ryan Miller, though, don't you also look at, hey, look what they did for Derek Roy, look what they did for Thomas Vanek, although they were sort of forced,
Right.
They were completely forced into that, but they shelled out the money for the young guys that they thought were worth it. Miller falls into that young guy category, more so than Brian Campbell does, so I would think that's a factor as well.
And the people who say the Sabres are cheap aren't right. The Sabres are spending more in payroll than they ever have. What the Sabres have done is perhaps spent their money the wrong ways. You know, the Tim Conley contract, Max Finnegan getting $3 million plus. You know, that's money that really wasn't well spent. Maybe in hindsight we're looking at it now. But I think they realize that the Sabres are spending money. It's will they spend it the right way? Will they give guys the kind of long-term contracts that are becoming common in this league?
Other than Campbell, what do you see the Sabres doing anything else around the trade deadline? Who do you think they might want to trade off of the roster?
Well, we have to watch Dmitry Kalinin, even though he's been playing very well the last month or so. But he's also an unrestricted free agent who has told us point blank they have had no conversation with his agent whatsoever. So I'm wondering if there's something out there where they're looking to move him as well. And, here's a crazy one, guys. Can Ryan Miller really play 75 games this year? Are we going to get a backup goalie in here who they can have any trust in to play 2 or 3 games? That's an issue, too. I don't think Miller can go the rest of the way here with no one to help him, and Lindy Ruff has clearly lost all faith in Jocelyn Thibault.
You're doing pretty well if the first thing you think of when you're trying to add to the roster is backup goaltender for a guy who's playing as often as Ryan Miller is. Where else do you look? I mean, years past, bring in a power forward, a puck-moving defenseman. What is the dire need on this team? Because I honestly don't see one. I see them needing to get healthy. I see them needing to gain confidence and get on a nice little run and be a contender in the East.
You said it all. The dire need for this team is just get healthy. If they get Drew Stafford back, as long as Jochen Hetch is okay, even Max if he comes back to play. Brian Campbell said yesterday, I love our 4 lines and we're just healthy. Right now, there's no one in the East who's scary. Which team are you scared of in the playoffs if Buffalo makes it?
The Senators if they had a goaltender.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and which brings up, do you think that the Senators will do something in terms of a goaltender? What other things do you see changing out maybe in the East?
Well, I think the Senators definitely have to think about that. A guy like Dwayne Rollison, the ex-Sabre, has been talked about, which is kind of a shot in the dark, but he did get Edmonton all the way to the finals a couple of years ago. I think that's a big key to watch. Montreal is certainly looking, maybe for a little more scoring punch, but right now, the other thing, guys, the deadline's a little early. It's still February. Everybody's in it. How many sellers are really out there?
Mike Harrington of the Buffalo News joining us here on Labatt Buffalo Main Event. I'm Brad Ryder along with Bob Gaughan. We'll be back in just a couple moments to wrap things up with a commentary. Be sure to check out our website. It is buffalomainevent.com. The commentary is next here on Labatt Buffalo Main Event.
It's so normal to feel this overwhelming pressure to just have to do it all. We understand what that's like. Bristol Home and Bristol Village and any other residence that's out there will tell you we see it every day, day in and day out. Families come in, and usually it's at that point where they say, we just don't know what to do anymore. So think about it. Don't feel as though you're alone, and ask for help. Early intervention is key. Planning ahead is key.
Bristol Home and Bristol Village. Assisted living where family matters.